Yo, 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 yo. Welcome in. It is episode 1 of Saliggy and The Doc. I am the Doc, Dr. Christian Friend, and I am here with my man, Saliggy. What's going on, Saliggy? How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. It's a good weekend, Saturday afternoon. We're trying to avoid this COVID thing. We're testing negative, staying positive.
Yes,
That's,
sir.
that's
Yeah.
the best thing we could do here. I'm being super black, as you can see on my shirt.
Yeah,
Got to
let's
do
talk
that for the
about that,
people.
man.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a little check-in at the beginning of each one of these. So our check-in question for the day is like, how long did you think about your outfit for episode 1?
Well, I didn't think long and hard. I'm gonna tell you guys, I cheated. I had this shirt on a couple of days ago,
Yeah,
but the big thing was take a shower and brush my teeth this morning. So that
good,
was the biggest
good.
thing. So
That's
I
all
and
good.
I shaved for you guys, so it's fresh and bald and
Okay,
shiny. But the shirt was kind of hanging on the bathroom door, so I said, "Oh, it just worked out that well. Serendipity, baby."
right. Looks perfect. It looks like the logo. You can't beat it. And we're
Yeah,
gonna keep it super black, or as Nas says, ultra black. Uh, I think mine was a discussion with Keisha, my wife, like, all right, what am I gonna wear? What am I wear? At first I was like, I'm gonna find something cool. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be completely me, and I am a nerd. So representing Penn, representing the Star Wars franchise, representing R2D2 today. And
black nerds, baby.
yes, big up to the nerds, big up to the sci-fi fans. We're gonna work some of that in here too in future episodes.
Okay, that'll
But
work.
today, last time we talked on a screen test, we were on the precipice of the Super Bowl, talking about what the Super Bowl outcomes might be or who was going to be in the Super Bowl. We are on the other side of the Super Bowl. Tom Brady's got another one with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Kansas City Chiefs, who were, depleted along the offensive line. But the question came up as a result of this is like, is Brady not just the greatest NFL player of all time or quarterback of all time, but is he the greatest athlete of all time given the 7 championships? What say you, Saliggy?
All right. Let me just flat out say, hell no.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen Tom Brady's 1999 draft combine workout, it's one of the worst things you could ever see. And he was a 6th-round pick. No one thought much of him. If you remember him in Michigan, he shared quarterbacking duties with Drew. Was it Drew Henson, the guy that played baseball?
Oh, that's right.
So so even Lloyd Carr didn't really believe if Tom Brady was going to be that guy. And eventually, he played well his senior year, and I think they went to the Rose Bowl and won. But yeah, Tom Brady as an athlete, no, he's
But
his makeup is terrible, all that good stuff. But I mean, what he does though is he keeps himself in great condition.
right,
Um, so he's been able to play for what 20 years, and I think it showed that when he left New England, how much of a drop off their offense took versus when he went to Tampa Bay. You plug him in, and he takes over for Jameis Winston, and they go deep into the playoffs and eventually win the Super Bowl. So,
granted, definitely not the greatest athlete. We could just use like height, weight, leaping ability, speed,
right,
and say he's at the bottom of the list among great athletes.
right, right.
Some people say greatest winner, though, I think is the question. So, and I think the comparison we've got most is like people thought of Michael Jordan as the greatest winner because of the 6 NBA titles. Now we're talking about like, is Tom Brady the greatest winner because of the 7 NFL championships? So definitely not greatest athlete. Is he the greatest winner?
I mean, no, the greatest winner in American sports isn't even Michael Jordan; it's Bill Russell. Bill
Oh,
Russell has 11 rings, man.
yes, he does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that dude has 11 rings, so he's the greatest winner. But when you think of greatest winner in NFL history, it's Brady. I mean, 7 rings to do it with 2 different franchises,
Mhm.
and to do it with such verve in different facets of his career. Um, that's you can't dispute that. I mean, I don't even know who comes close to him as far as the ring count is concerned. But 7 rings as the starting quarterback of 2 franchises is what it is.
Yeah, you're right. And so, real quick, I'm the doc, so I had to do a little bit of research. I knew Bill Russell's name would come up, 11-time NBA championship, 5-time MVP, 12-time NBA All-Star, 3-time NBA first team, on every anniversary team, retired number, 2-time NCAA champion.
San Francisco Dons, baby, 56,
right.
57.
Wow. Saliggy with the deep sports knowledge. And one of those, or at least one of those, you may know, that is as a player coach, which has really never been done.
Yeah, I think that was his last one, the one before he retired. Yeah.
So one more kind of variable to throw in here, we combat racism on this show. We also need to combat some sexism. And one name that rarely gets mentioned, but should definitely be in the conversation, I believe, and I think we got some friends who would back us up on this, is Serena Williams. When you think about Serena Williams, people think, oh, how good is she? Is she the greatest tennis player? And I think there's an argument to be made for her being the greatest winner. So I took a look at that. 23 Grand Slam titles, which is the number that people focus on. But there's a total of 73 singles tournaments won, right? Which gives her a 75% winning percentage in tournaments, which is crazy. In addition to Olympic gold medal, tour championships, and that's just as a singles athlete. As a doubles athlete, 14 Grand Slams, another 3 gold medals, with a 92% winning percentage in these tournaments, right? And then 2 mixed doubles Grand Slams, which I knew nothing about and couldn't even fathom. So given those numbers, where does Serena fall on the list?
She's in the conversation. I mean, I think everybody's looking at her to chase that 24th, which has been eluding her for the last, 2-3 years. And I guess with the emergence of Naomi Osaka, it's very difficult to see her getting that 24th. But from the time that she's dominated over the last, 17, 18 years in the tennis game, I don't think it's arguable anymore. I think she is the greatest tennis player, male or female, ever. Winner, she's in the conversation. I mean, you can't dispute that. I mean, 23 Grand Slams itself, just on an individual level, it's like, damn, And we're talking about in the era of Federer, Djokovic, Nadal. I don't even know who her contemporaries on the women's side would be in her prime. I don't think, Kim Clijsters, and maybe there's her own sister, Venus.
No one.
I would have looked into that and figure out who those women that were challenging her. But she has sustained level of excellence for nearly 2 decades.
Yeah. Now, I would argue that she's done it like no one has. We won't get too deep into it. I don't think it's an argument that can be resolved today. But yes, I'm in agreement. She's done it and I'll say she's done it like no one has in any sport. And the other thing is, and I think, it's easy to take this for granted as a man. She had a baby, man.
Baby. And almost died.
Right. So she had a baby. Brought life into the world, carried a child, delivered a child, and then came back enough not just to be in pro athlete form, but to be in championship form. So when you make the comparison, for me, it's like, it's hard for me to rule that out as a variable.
Yeah, it's in there. I mean, I don't see Bill Russell giving any babies back in the 50s and 60s.
Right, exactly.
He fought racism, but he didn't fight an epidural. He had no kids.
He had no kids. Just give birth and then see how many rebounds you get. Right. How many rebounds you got after that delivery. But by the way, I learned this. Bill Russell averaged 22 rebounds a game over the course of his career. I had no idea. That's insane.
Yeah, you got to consider he and Wilt Chamberlain played in the era with a bunch of short white dudes, man.
True.
But they were dominant. And that's why when they keep talking about Shaq being the most dominant player of all time, I have an issue with that because Shaq was bigger, more athletic, and stronger than most. He should have been averaging 22 and 25 in this era, and he didn't.
Yeah. But Russell only had 15 points, but Wilt, to your point, was the most dominant, perhaps.
Yeah, he was sick. Wilt was sick. Can I jump in real quick and say something about another dominant athlete?
Yeah.
That that came up in the news this week. And I'm going to make a little joke, and it might offend some people. Tiger Woods.
Get used to it.
Tiger, get used to it, folks.
That's everything.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods, Eldrick.
What's going on with Tiger, man?
So, Tiger had that bad accident where they said that he had to be pried from the jaws of life.
Right.
To be pried out of that car. And then when you were hearing early prognosis, they were saying they thought about amputating because his leg was so bad.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, they were talking about that, but I guess they're saying his recovery is going to be okay. But him winning majors, I think, is a thing of the past. I think he was, what he did 2 years ago winning the Masters was like, oh my God, but I think we're far past that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is one of the great winners in the game. But I don't really consider golf a sport. That's a me thing. Golf is more of a leisurely rich man's activity. But he did bring weightlifting and he did bring some athleticism to it. But the joke I'm going to make is everybody had been worried about Tiger's putting game for the longest time. Maybe he should have gotten himself a driver. That's all. We'll leave it at
that. You know what? When he had that accident, my first thought was, and it's sad that this is my first thought, it displays my own bias, was like, oh man, and I don't know if it's sad that was my first thought, but I was concerned like he was under the influence, right? Because
everybody
of prior arrest, right? So it's like early reports are that was not the case. Well, that just makes me feel better about him because, like you said, like surely his career is likely over given the extent of the physical damage. It's just good. I just hope, let me put it that way, that he's happy in life outside of sports. Speaking of trying to make yourself happy in life, Ted Cruz the other day bounced on the state of Texas to head to Cancun. I'm going to read a little excerpt from our colleagues over at Associated Press from an article on February 18th. The Associated Press says, Texas Senator Ted Cruz said his family vacation to Mexico was, quote, obviously a mistake as he returned stateside Thursday, following the uproar over his disappearance during a deadly winter storm. The Republican senator said that he began second-guessing the trip since the moment he first got on the plane Wednesday. Quote, in hindsight, I wouldn't have done it, he told reporters. The Associated Press and other media outlets reported that he had traveled out of the country with his family as hundreds of thousands of Texans were still grappling with the fallout of a winter storm that crippled the state's power grid. The trip drew criticism from leaders in both parties and was seen potentially damaging for his future political ambitions. Saliggy, I know you've been anxious to tear into Ted Cruz. Let him have
it. My man, Raphael Edward Cruz from Canada, the greatest Texan of all time. He's a clown. He's a walking clown show. This is the same dude who went to the 2016 Republican convention and was an adversary of the last guy in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and allowed that man to say that his father was implicated in the murder of JFK, the assassination, because his father was in cahoots with Lee Harvey Oswald some way, somehow, which is bogus, right? And at the same time, he let this same dude talk about his wife publicly. But then you align yourself with him politically over the last 4 years, and you've been an ass clown forever, right? So now we come to this, where Texas has this deep freeze, because, Texas, everything is bigger in Texas, so their deep freeze is bigger than anything that we've seen in a while. And this asshole decides to go to Cancun. Not just go to Cancun, but then put that on his wife and his daughters and said they wanted to go, so I appeased them, I acquiesced. And my daughter and her friends wanted to go to Cancun, so I decided to go ahead and give them what they wanted. Come on, man. Come on, what kind of man are you spineless bastard?
I think you answered that question. What trips me out is some of these memes we're seeing on social media now. We see Ted Cruz fleeing the scene in Texas. We're also seeing Ted Cruz trying to deny that he was actually in Cancun. This one courtesy of Moist Buddha on Instagram.
Moist Buddha, what's up?
What up, Moist Buddha? Shout me out. this is the one that I love, the cornrows braids
Uh-huh.
from Cancun as he attempts to deny it. What's interesting is how they've gone back and found like all this video of him talking about how other folks need to be present and need to show up in times of crisis.
Right.
It's the very definition of a lack of integrity and hypocrisy.
The dude tried to lie and say that he was taking a day-long trip and was going to come back. And somebody from United who really hates him decided to say, oh no, he had a week-long ticket to stay in Cancun.
Right.
So now he had to come back and backtrack, and now he's giving people water and he's giving people food. Like, get lost, dude. Like, it's a jerk.
We'll save the talk around the new stimulus package for another day because there's still so much going on in politics. But I know the right wing lost a great one for them in Rush Limbaugh in recent weeks. And I know Rush Limbaugh is one of your favorite people, Saliggy.
Yeah,
so
I love
just
that.
wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity here today to honor Rush Limbaugh in our first episode.
Rush Limbaugh, this one's for you.
Okay.
You know? Fuck that dude, man.
You seem genuinely irritated, like he did something to your family. Like
no, he didn't do anything to my family personally, man. But man, that dude's a xenophobe, a homophobe, a racist. Didn't believe in climate change. He was just anti anything good. So, I'm only giving what he gave us. Right. So these are the dead flowers I'm giving your cold, dead ass. Take your Presidential Medal of Freedom and shove it up your ass and take it to hell with you. That's how I feel about it. And then the current governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, wanted to fly flags at half staff to honor Rush Limbaugh.
Say what now?
Say what now? Florida. Florida.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Well, I just wanted to give you space to honor your friend and colleague, Rush Limbaugh.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Super black, super white. We're awesome.
Yeah, this is the Rush Limbaugh, Ted Cruz are indicative of kind of the thing that we fight against most, right? Like the white supremacist, sick lack of integrity that has influenced our country and our government since its inception, really. Like that is completely self-serving. And I'm with you. I won't give him the finger publicly, but I will say that like the idea that Rush Limbaugh got a Presidential Medal of Freedom is a real slap in the face to everyone in the United States, but particularly to marginalized populations and people of color included in that. So I'm with you, man. It's painful in a lot of ways to see folks like that get honored. So we gotta keep it positive, keep it light a little bit, get me out of my Rush Limbaugh hate feeling. COVID's been rough on all of us. The one thing that I have been, Keisha told me yesterday, like all you're doing is leaving work and chilling and watching NBA games. And I said, that's about right. So I'm thinking about the NBA a lot just to stay occupied while I'm locked in the house. What do you think is going on in the NBA? What's most interesting to you at this approaching the midpoint of this modified NBA season?
Clearly the most obvious story is the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah. I almost said New Jersey, right?
That hurt me. I wish they were New Jersey. I was a Nets fan, and then they moved to Brooklyn. I'm from New Jersey. As a Nets fan, they moved to Brooklyn, and I lost my team. So, yeah, I wish they were still the New Jersey Nets. But go ahead, Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how the hell they play defense. I don't know how that happens. They traded Jared Allen, who was their best defender. And to be honest, him in Cleveland right now is making Andre Drummond expendable. So, when they decided to trade him to get James Harden, I'm like, dude, how are you guys doing this, right? So they're literally outscoring people. So when I think of defense, this is what I'm thinking of the Nets. Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Steve Nash, the coach, and lead assistant Mike D'Antoni. All four of those people know nothing about defense.
Yeah,
but
what I thought. Yeah,
but they're over 500, right? And more surprisingly, you're doing this without KD. KD's been out for what, 2 weeks maybe?
a long time it seems. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he is probably the best scorer in the last 10 years of the NBA. So for them to continue to push forward and be competitive and actually win games for the last couple months since the Harden trade, it's been impressive, I have to say. I think secondly, the Lakers, the defending champions. It's interesting. They won a game last night. I forget who they played. They beat someone last night. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they had struggled. They lost 4 in a row before that. And, LeBron is his age 36, 37 year.
Yeah.
It's
getting up there.
Kind of hard for him to continue to carry a lot of teams on his back without a little help. And I think personally, if they want to win another title, they would have to sit Anthony Davis for the duration of the rest of this regular season. Because they're saying it's a hamstring, or no, is it a calf pull?
Calf strain, yeah.
The calf strains are linked to the Achilles.
Right.
You don't want to blow it out. You don't want to see another Kevin Durant injury in the NBA Finals during this season. So if they're saying it's a 4-week injury, if they can go 8 to 12 weeks with that, I think it'll be better for them in the long term. I think the West is so weird in that like 10 to 13 slot. I think the Lakers can survive as a 5 to 6 seed and advance, and end up playing the likes of like Utah or Denver and still be competitive when they get a healthy AD back.
Yeah, you're making good points around Brooklyn and the Lakers there. Just taking a look at the numbers while you were talking about it, it's the Lakers. Still only 3.5 out of first place in the Western Conference. They did beat Portland last night. It will be a heavy load that LeBron has to carry. I think they're hoping to get some help from Morris. They're hoping Kuzma steps up. They just got the point guard back. Why am I blanking on his name? What's the point guard that they just got?
Schroeder.
Schroeder. They just got Schroeder back from injury, so looks like they'll hold on. I agree with you. Like, they've got to rest AD, and if he's healthy, they can make a run. But we'll see. Yeah. I think the issue with all the big men, Drummond and others who they're thinking about picking up, is cap space and the contracts that they've got, is what I'm hearing. Brooklyn Nets only a half game out of first place, and I got to say something here because, number one, that's amazing. Number two, I did not believe in them. I will own it.
Neither did I.
When they hired Nash, I was like, this is terrible. Why did they do that? This is not going to work. And then, like, in every interview, Nash's response to questions is kind of like, well, they're just going to have to figure it out. We just need to work together. He's got no definitive strategy that he's talking about, so I didn't trust it, right? But he trusts his players, and he's got 3 Hall of Famers on the roster, and they're balling out. The numbers are ridiculous. Like, I'm looking at the scoring numbers for the team. Kevin Durant in only 19 games, but he's averaging 29. Kyrie Irving's averaging 27. James Harden's now averaging 25. And, they traded away LeVert, but Joe Harris is averaging 15 points a game.
That's crazy.
53% shooting from the field. So when you get that type of scoring, to your point, like, they lead the league in scoring per game at 121. And they lost some early games I remember seeing them, the loss to Cleveland. And I was like, oh, they're in trouble. But here they sit at 22-12 and a half game out of first place. So kudos to those players, and to Steve Nash, who's got some Zen-like, Phil Jackson-like.
Yeah, right. He's like hands off. Laissez-faire,
He's making it work. And what I've noticed, what this has taught me, is when I see those veteran players, DeAndre Jordan in particular, they were giving up a lot of layups, in that Cleveland game, a lot of points to guards and penetration. And I saw them, afterwards, Harden was always talking to somebody. He was and I thought for a while, maybe James Harden is complaining a lot about what people aren't doing. But I'm realizing, they're learning how to play together. And that's a good sign for their success. And a big shout out to James Harden for being a leader on that team.
Yeah, leadership and James Harden don't really go hand in hand in my mind. So
I didn't think. Yeah.
I want to see how long that's going to go. Because I mean, we saw him with Dwight Howard. We saw him with Chris Paul. We saw him with Russell Westbrook. He's the constant.
Yeah.
So let's see how this works out.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting down the stretch. Eastern Conference, we're looking at Brooklyn. Western Conference, we're looking at LA, but it's a bunch of other teams in the mix. We'll see what Utah does.
Denver too. Don't forget Denver.
I don't believe them. Everyone says it, and I'm like, nah.
Jokic and Murray.
I don't believe it.
Okay.
I don't believe it. My cousin Leon Dale, shout out to Leon Dale III, basketball coach, realtor, Berkshire Hathaway in Philadelphia. He posted something. He showed like a fast break opportunity. It was like a 4-on-3
with the Wizards.
Did you see this? They had the ball on the wing in Jamal Murray's hand, and everyone else lined up at the 3-point line. No one ran to the rim for the layup. And it's like, for me, you got to shoot that layup. And I'm down 2, but the layup still ties it.
It was at home. I don't blame Jamal Murray. I think he was kind of stutter stepping the pass to someone cutting to the basket. I blame Michael Porter. His tall ass should have been running to the basket.
Right, that's an alley.
It's an alley. He flared out with what's the Spanish point guard, Campanazzo, and I forget who the other person was. They had a 4-on-1, and then a couple of Wizards trailed back in. That should have been a tie game going into overtime. Should have been.
Yeah. Especially when you're Denver playing Washington, right? You got to trust your team that your talent's going to win out. But I know you want to talk about Washington.
I don't. I'm not a
Go ahead.
But they have won.
It looked good.
5 out of 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a shout out to all those Wizards fans like Diallo Crenshaw, friend of ours.
Yeah.
Die hard through the good, the bad, and the ugly. We don't know a lot of good. There's a lot of bad and ugly. But yeah, they're 5 out of 6. Now, I'm a big Westbrook fan. I love Westbrook. I hate his wardrobe, but like his game.
Yeah, true. So, like, I will say that, like, that Beal Westbrook thing, they've made it work. It looks good. They've really got something to build on in Washington, in my opinion. You mentioned good, bad, and ugly. Like, we want to make sure that we cover not just the fun stuff, but the serious topics. The conversation that's happening a lot in my house right now is around mental health. I go to therapy every week or every other week just to deal with the trauma of, loss, of being a Black man in America, of trying to pay my bills. It's always, something going on that I feel the need to work through, of growing up in a family where there were mental health issues. And I got some data here from American Psychiatric Association. It's a little dated, from 2017, but they record that approximately 18% of US adults have diagnosable mental health disorders in a given year. And about 4% of adults have serious mental health illnesses. They acknowledge the fact that America in general is becoming more racially and ethnically diverse. And they point out that ethnic and racial minorities often bear a disproportionately high burden of disability resulting from mental health disorders. They also talk about barriers to accessing mental health services, which can be lack of insurance, which we know would disproportionately impact people of color, mental health illness stigma, like the idea of thinking there's something wrong with getting help or going to therapy. And that's often greater among racial or ethnic minority populations. And then, it's hard to find providers who match the racial and ethnic makeup of folks, and they may or may not be culturally competent, not to mention language barriers and some other access to care. All this is to say, like, I don't have a diagnosable mental health issue. Well, my chart at my doctor's office says mild anxiety, right? And so a lot of it is just emotional health. I'm a big advocate for seeking the care you need. And this is becoming an increasingly important issue, not just in like our individual lives or interpersonal and how we relate to each other and our families, but in society as a whole. We should see it showing up in kind of how police respond to people with mental health issues. And Saliggy, I know you've got a personal anecdote about how some of that may have played out.
Yeah, so this past Thursday, a good friend of mine that I grew up with in my neighborhood and also high school classmate, Donald Hairston, he was shot by the cops and killed by the cops down in Culpeper County, Virginia. And from what I've been hearing from some people is that he had threatened to commit suicide, and his wife, now widow, and stepdaughter must have made a call to the police, and they left the house. And I guess the cops came to the house, to the home, and he had a gun. I guess went to the top of the floor, had a gun at the window, and said, "Y'all need to get away from here or I'm gonna kill myself." Now, Donald was one of the most mild-mannered people that I grew up with in my neighborhood. We had a bunch of knuckleheads and stuff, but he was a very good, very mild-mannered guy. And he revealed to me back at our 20-year anniversary in 2014 that he had a terminal illness that was going to eventually kill him. So when I heard that he passed, my first thought was the terminal illness he had succumbed to that, and he was now at peace, no longer in pain, right? But then when I heard yesterday that it was at the hands of the police in Culpeper, Virginia, it infuriated me. And what I did find out was that after he had threatened to kill himself on the first floor, the cops backed off for 45 minutes and didn't leave. He came, and 45 minutes later, things should have been subdued. He's coming out of his house, going to his car, and they shot him in his back, killed him. And also the key part here was, if they know it was a suicide attempt or a call to help prevent suicide, there was no mental health care individual on site with the police. So they're doing an investigation in the state or the Commonwealth of Virginia. I don't expect it to turn out in him or his family's favor, but that's another senseless murder of a 44-year-old Black man that wasn't looking to harm anyone else but himself, and was looking and crying out for help. So that's my personal anecdote to this particular topic here.
Thank you for sharing that, Saliggy. And this is why we hear these calls for defund the police. Sometimes folks are saying like, oh, well, we need law and order. It's like, we're talking about defunding the police. We're talking about, like, as opposed to investing in people who are going to come to a scene like that and paying for that service, why don't we pay for a service where someone who comes to the scene in a response to a suicide threat is trained on how to de-escalate a suicide threat and is trained on how to deal with these mental health issues. So it's really a travesty in this, not just this one situation. It's a call for police reform. It's a call for mental health reform. And for me, I'm just going to continue to advocate for us individually as Black, Indigenous, people of color to get help, right? Not to be ashamed to say, hey, I'm not 100%. It's good for me to talk to someone. And I'm going to continue to advocate for systemic reform, like to change the way that we as a country treat people with mental health issues, because right now we're failing, and it's indicative of a failing society, how we treat those who are in need in our society. So,
and I want to say, I'm gonna give you kudos, man. I'm like 15 years delayed in my attempt to get mental health, get my mental health checked out with a professional. But I mean, I know you've taken it upon yourself to better yourself and have someone to talk to over a lot of the trials and tribulations and tragedies that you've been dealing with throughout your life. So I got to give you kudos, and I got to give you your applause there. Yeah, I'm definitely going to follow suit. Absolutely.
Thank you, brother. Well, shout out to all those seeking therapy. Hey, you can literally hit us up on email too, like Saliggy and The Doc at gmail.com. Spell it out if you want. If you got questions about this or want to share a story. You can also find us on social media anywhere at Saliggy and The Doc on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Saliggy, we're going to get ready to do this outro, but I know you had some shout outs. I want to make sure you get your shout outs, man. So go ahead and shout folks out, Saliggy.
All right. First shout out is going to go to Twitter. Thank you a lot, Jack Dorsey, for kicking me off Twitter permanently like I was Donald Trump or something, for calling my brother the N-word. You ain't shit. I'll find my way back home. But on a more serious note, I want to dedicate this show to our friend, your classmate at Penn, Greg Nesmith, who passed away earlier this month. And I know that the class of '97 at the University of Pennsylvania and pretty much a lot of Black Penn are getting together to go ahead and fund a scholarship in his name and his honor. So just wanted to go ahead and dedicate this episode to my man.
Yeah,
G-Money.
Shout out to G-Money, an inspiration to all of us. Shout out to Underdogg Stuff, an inspiration to all of us. Well, folks, episode 1 is in the can. Thank you for tuning in to Saliggy and The Doc. You know where to find us on YouTube. Like, share, please subscribe. We got more stuff coming your way. And until then, say what now?
What up? We got more shit to say.